May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, a fellow named Michael Pappas. Mike Pappas. I met Michael on Facebook. I don't know if we go back further because I have lots of people, friends on Facebook and email and this and that. But he'd sent me a messenger, right? And he'd sent pictures of a fundraising brochure to buy Zen Mountain Center, to buy land for a Zen practice center in the woods down south of San Francisco. And I looked at that thing. It was a photograph, and he sent a few. Sent another brochure. But I recognized that. I knew we had that one. The first one, I went, wow, wait a minute. It was the one fundraising brochure for raising money to buy Tassajara we didn't have. And it was an oversight. I really thought I'd gone through absolutely everything at the Page Street building in Green Gulch and Tassajara. But things keep coming up. I just got an email recently, or a Facebook message, a fella, had some other, some other materials. And I asked him, well, where'd you get that? And he said, oh, it was in a box and, at the city center, and, I was a guest student, I was looking at it, so I took a picture of it or something. I said, well, where's the box? And he said, well, I couldn't get anybody interested in it, and I think they threw it away. And I said, that is a perfect summary of the history of archiving at Zen Center. It's one side of it, right? So Michael had found some boxes with all these old brochures, and he took a couple. There were plenty of them. They were very old. Thank you, Michael. Now, somehow I'd missed that first one. Now, the first brochure was to raise money for land near Tassajara. And we were raising $20,000 on a down payment on a $150,000 piece of land called the horse pasture that was owned by the Becks who sold us Tassajara. And at the last minute, Bob and Anna Beck and Richard Baker came to an agreement to put the down payment money. He went there to seal the deal, put the down payment money on Tassajara, which was now going to be $300,000. They'd come down from $375,000, and they really wanted us to get it. So anyway, I said, gee, I'd like some nice scans of that. Could you do that? And he said, oh, that's back in my storage in Portland. Yeah, I'll do that, but I won't be back there for 3 months or so. So then I was just biting my nails and waiting for 3 months. And he did it. He'd sent really nice photographs. They were good enough. A photograph can be as good as a scan. It is a type of scan. I mean, a scan's a type of photograph, right? And we have them up now. We have a page on posters and brochures for fundraisers for Zen Mountain Center. It's a whole page of, workshops and fundraisers and this and that. And that's the number one, the first one. And anyway, so I was talking to him. Well, I was messaging with him, and I said, hey, why don't you be a podcast guest? And as it says in the podcast, he went, oh, no, I was just a guest student. I was just a student there for a while. And I said, no, come on, because I like to get everybody's story, you never know. And let me tell you, it's good. So look, it's a really good Way-Seeking Mind story. And it's really good because it starts off with a serious choice. Well, I'll try Zen, and if it doesn't work, I'll kill myself. And it worked. And I must say, we sit around a bitch about Zen Center, always have, and this and that. It's never perfect. It's an institution. But I can't tell you the number of people who are practicing and people who weren't, who said, it just came at a time in my life where it was just so important. And, that discipline, and it just turned me around, or just relating to the people, being there in that group. And the group and the culture changes through the years. They're talking about different times, and they're talking about people they're related to. And, a lot of them went on, and, almost all of us have gone on and done other things. Now, I've kept one foot in it, right? But there's an enormous amount of gratitude from a very wide range of people about the time they had at Zen Center. There's a good deal of resentment, too, and hurt feelings. People who felt they weren't appreciated, who were sort of felt like they were sort of pushed out. So there is stuff like, well, it's an institution, There's old prominent students, at some point where it suggested they go out and this and that. I did it on my own early, but, then I'd come back and do things with Zen Center. But I was 10 years accompaniment, but after, 66 through 76, a few months short of 10 years. And, but anyway, you get it. That's enough. After we've had our pause to meditate, we'll give Mike Pappas a call. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever, and we'll give Mike Pappas a call.
Hello.
Hey there. How you doing?
Hi, David. How are you?
Okay. So, you're in Corpus Christi, right?
Correct, yeah.
Home of Janis Joplin, as I recall.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think so.
We've been hearing a lot about Selena.
No,
Haven't heard anything about Janis, but Selena is very big around here.
Oh, maybe Janis Joplin from I'm going to look it up. Joplin.
Ah,
She might be
where are
from
you
Port
from?
Arthur. She's from Port Arthur.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm from Fort Worth.
Oh, okay. North of here.
Yeah, that's right. Where are you from?
I grew up in Detroit.
Aha.
But I've lived in Portland, Oregon for 42 years straight, more or less straight. Last 42 years I've lived in Portland.
Uh-huh. When were you born?
1954.
Aha. Aha.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
So I was in Detroit until I went to college in Michigan.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And so you and I have been in contact because at some point in your life you went to the San Francisco Zen Center.
That's right.
And so how'd that come about?
Oh, well, it was 1980, and I was ready to kill myself. And I had read a couple kind of just, bookstore books, just kind of pop books about Zen. And I'd moved to Portland, Oregon in '78, and I met a guy who knew Suzuki Roshi. And he gave me a copy of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind.
What was his name? Do you remember?
His name was Mike Veritas.
Huh.
I'm sure that wasn't his original name. He told me that he had driven Suzuki Roshi. He had been Suzuki Roshi's driver.
Uh-huh.
And he and I were school bus drivers in Portland, Oregon in like 1978.
Huh.
Yeah. So
Suzuki didn't have
a
driver. Suzuki didn't have a driver, but people drove him. There was never anyone because a lot of us drove him. But
well, I guess maybe it'd be more accurate to say that he drove Suzuki Roshi at some point in time.
Yeah. Suzuki didn't drive, and he didn't want to because he liked to relate to people that way, and he liked having different people drive him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided it's at some point in time I decided, well, if this Zen thing doesn't work out, I can kill myself later. The possibility will still be there.
Oh, wow.
So I'll try the Zen thing, and if it doesn't work, if it doesn't help, I'll kill myself.
Now, why did you want to kill yourself?
Oh, mostly because I was very lonely. I was extremely lonely. I'd been in love with this woman, and I wanted to marry her, and she dumped me very harshly. And I just thought, what's the point? I'm just sick of life. And I was only 25. I was already
yeah.
I was only 25, and I was already sick of it.
Yeah. Wow.
And Zen was this very interesting thing. And before I'd met this guy in Portland, I thought that I would have to go to Japan to study Zen, and I wasn't about to do that. That never really occurred to me that I would go to Japan and study. And I thought Zen was this thing that existed in Japan. I didn't think Zen practice was an option in the U.S. And then I met this guy, and I was like, oh, there's people doing Zen in San Francisco. Well, that's not that far away. I guess I could go do Zen with them. So I actually rode the Green Tortoise bus. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And I left the morning of the Mount St. Helens eruption. I left that morning, and while we're driving to San Francisco, I heard that the mountain had blown up, and I missed the whole thing. But I always know what day I went to San Francisco.
and
it was exactly that same day.
What was the date again?
Well, I'm not sure. You'd have to look it up. It's the day that Mount St. Helens blew up.
All right.
Big eruption. It was May. I know it was May. And it was, 1980.
Uh-huh.
And I just kind of went to the Zen Center and knocked on the door and said, hey, I'd like to learn how to meditate. And they said, okay, come on in.
May 18th.
On Page Street.
May 18th.
1980, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's great. So you knocked on the door and said you want to learn to meditate. They said, come on in, and then what?
They allowed me to stay there. I can't remember. I had an introductory session with a guy named Steve Allen.
Oh yeah.
And I always thought Steve Allen, that's a memorable name because he was, there was a TV host with the same name, and I thought, oh, Steve Allen.
Oh yeah.
And I remember having this introductory talk with Steve Allen in the, somewhere in the Zen Center building. And I remember I sort of had a vision of I don't know how to describe it. There was a few of us there, and I kind of had this vision of like some colored kind of stream of something coming out of all of our heads and joining up above us. And I went, well, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
And decided, well, this is definitely something new. And, began sitting. I mean, I went from being drunk and stoned, sort of half the time to suddenly being at the Zen Center and getting up at, 5 o'clock or whatever it was and sitting 4 or 5 periods a day. And, suddenly I'm eating vegetarian food, and it was intense. It was very intense, very difficult. And after about, I think I was there about 4 days, and they said, well, next week we're doing a sesshin. Do you want to stay? And I said, hell no, I don't want to do a sesshin. I just started sitting 3 days ago. And I said, well, if you don't want to do a sesshin, you can go to Tassajara. And I said, okay, I'll go to Tassajara then. So within like 4 days of beginning sitting, I was at Tassajara.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And I always say the people there saved my life because they were just so wonderful. I mean, everyone was just so wonderful. They were the most wonderful people I'd ever met.
Well, that's nice.
I told them, you guys saved. I mean, later, I don't know who I was talking to, Blanche or another woman whose name I don't. Tia Strozer.
You got it.
I think she was she was the head of the kitchen, Tenzo.
Mm-hmm.
Later, I told her, you guys all of you who were there, you saved my life. Because it was just so refreshing and so wonderful to be around those people.
Tia was the Tenzo in the city then, right?
No, she was I believe she was the Tenzo at Tassajara.
Oh, she was. She went on to be the Tenzo in the city. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was the summer. I was there I stayed for 3.5 months. And Norman Fish, Blanche Hartman was the head monk,
Mm-hmm.
and Norman Fisher was there as a resident, and Paul Haller was there. I sat Tongario next to Paul just one day. Gil Fronsdale was working in the kitchen.
Oh goodness!
A lot of people who went. Well, 3 or 4 people who ended up being abbot. Well, Blanche ended up as abbot. Norman did. Paul Haller did. Vanya Palmers was there. He was the work leader.
Oh, wow.
I just loved him.
Yeah.
I just loved Vanya.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of, amazing people there. Gil Fronsdale, he worked in the kitchen, and I was a waiter. They put me in the kitchen, and I don't know. I don't think I knew what the hell I was doing. So I was a friendly guy, so they made me a waiter in the dining room.
Yeah.
And I would, have to ferry food from the kitchen to the dining room. And Gil Fronsdale was in the kitchen, and he moved so slowly. I just always wanted to slap him because he was being so mindful and moving so slowly. I'd be standing there, waiting to bring some food to the dining room, and I just wanted to slap him upside the head.
Oh yeah, that's great. I understand. I ran the dining room for 4 years, from the first, and yeah, and I was the host at Greens for the first 2 years, and if we got it was all Zen students then, and if we got a new student sent over to Greens to help, and they were doing that, I just say, hey, you might think that Zen is, but here, go as fast as you can while being efficient and careful.
Be careful, be mindful, but, let's get going here. There are people waiting.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, that was funny. So when I was there, I met Isan and I met Philip Whalen, and
oh wow,
I got very close to Blanche. She was the head monk. I just loved her.
I think so they were calling it Tanto then, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so. Head monk.
No, we didn't say head monk because the head monk is the Shuso. And the Tantos, the Shuso is the second ordination after you get ordained as a priest or a monk. And the Tanto is when you're like at a teacher level.
Okay.
And the head monk, you're still you're like head student there.
Okay.
But I mean, it's all confusing because we did use words like that interchangeably.
Do you want to hear a little story about something that happened with Blanche and I?
Well, absolutely.
A teaching she gave me. Like I said, I went from being drunk and stoned and, living on McDonald's and, junk food. And then within, about 4 or 5 days, I'm at Tassajara. And, I describe it as being a combination of boot camp and detox. Because I was detoxing. I didn't know it at the time, but in retrospect, I was also detoxing. Vegetarian food and I think we were sitting 5 periods a day. Anyway, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I was breathing. I didn't know at the time. Well, here's how I describe it. I was breathing very loudly, but I thought I was the only one that could hear me. I thought I was the only person that could hear this breath. So I was breathing. And I just thought, well, that's normal. Nobody can hear me. I'm not disturbing anyone. And Blanche had me come and meet with her, and she didn't say anything. She just had me sit next to her. I guess it was in the Zendo. She just had me sit next to her, and she just said, let's just sit for a while. And we sat there, and without her ever saying anything, I realized how loudly I was breathing. And I just stopped. I just stopped breathing so loudly.
That's really something. That's good. I mean, it's really something she didn't say anything. And did that.
No, she didn't say anything.
Wow.
But somehow I just got it. I just got it. Like, oh, I'm really breathing loudly.
Yeah. I would have said, hey, man, you don't have to breathe loud like that. But I really, Blanche, that's much better. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah. It just, you know, I just got it without her saying a word about it. I just got it. Like, oh, I'm really breathing loudly. Yeah. And I had a lot of contact with Norman Fisher. I just loved Norman. I mean, he was kind of like my best friend when I was there. You know, a bunch of us lived in the barn. We were upstairs in the barn.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I got to be good friends with a guy you might know, Jim Parolini.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you ever remember Jim Parolini.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there. We were, you know, his bed was near mine. And, yeah, it was an amazing 3.5 months, and it was really hard. I mean, it was really difficult for me. I was just in tremendous pain during sitting every time, but you know, I did have the will to not move. I had the urge to do it, you know, as best I could.
Yeah.
And I was required to do a 1-day Tongario, which, you know, totally terrified me. And it was, yeah, I mean, I could barely sit for 40 minutes without screaming, you know, so this idea of Tongario was like, okay, you know, I don't know, I'll try, you know, I'll try. And it was Paul Holler and we sat together in the Zendo all day.
Yeah.
Right next to each other.
Yeah. Well,
and he was in full lotus, like no big deal. And I'm like sweating bullets all day. I don't know how I survived it. It was just, I guess I was young enough to, you know, take all that pain.
Wow.
Physical and emotional pain.
Yeah, Tongario, there's you know, a sesshin, you sit for 40 minutes at Zen Center, and then you walk for 10 minutes, right? So it goes back and forth. Tongario, you sit till breakfast or till morning service, and then you sit till afternoon service, and, you know, after breakfast, a little brief break. But you know how Richard Baker used to describe it, and how this is a good point. I'll remember this because I'm writing about some of this stuff right now. I'm going to make a little note. Baker on Tongario, because what he said Tongario, you don't think you have to sit there like it's a sesshin. Just stay in that spot. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that that's the traditional official way to sit Tongario, but that's the approach he had, was that's your spot, you stay there. And so he was giving people permission, you know, so they'd feel all right about moving and stuff.
Well, I never heard that. Nobody told me that.
Wow.
Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
Of course, Paul didn't move an inch.
Oh, that's pretty good.
No, he didn't move an inch. And I'm sitting right next to him going, Jesus Christ, you know.
Oh.
I can't move. I can't move.
Wow.
He's not moving. I'm not. If he's not moving, then I'm not supposed to move, I guess. You know, I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Wow. That was, you had a really strict example right next to you.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Mm.
And I think during the breaks, I might have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that during the breaks, Paul went running.
Huh.
He went running up the road, you know, towards Jamesburg. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So it's like, and I'm like, you know, I'm dying. I just want to lie down and, you know, try to recover from the last 4 hours or whatever. And this guy's going running. I'm like, holy shit, you know? Jesus. This is, you know, and, you know, I was impressed that, you know, a human being could do that.
Mm.
You know, I was 25. I guess I was 25 years old. I had my 26th birthday at Tassajara.
Mm.
So, you know, I wanted to be like him.
Mm.
But I loved Norman Fisher. You know, Paul and I weren't really friends. I mean, he was just, you know, this intense, amazing guy.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like we were friends, but Norman was, you know, he was just such a wonderful person. I guess if I had to say, you know, who I, you know, really wanted to emulate was Norman and Blanche. You know, they were just such wonderful people.
Mm.
And then, you know, Phil Whalen came and gave a couple talks. I do have an interesting story about Isan.
Please.
Isan came and gave a talk. You know, the teachers would come there. They would pass through and stay a few days at Tassajara, and they would give a Dharma talk. And I always remember the one Isan gave because it was really depressing. You know, I didn't know anything about Isan at the time, you know, until after I read the book about him and, you know, Street Zen and, you know, learned more about who he was. But at the time, you know, he came and gave this talk, and I found the talk extremely depressing. And afterwards, we went they had question and answer in the dining room, which was wonderful. It was always a wonderful scene there because, well, first of all, you could sit in a chair, you know.
Yeah.
I was comfortable for the first time all week. And bats do you remember bats would fly into the dining room and fly around above our heads while we're sitting there in the kerosene light?
Oh, thanks for the detail. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd all be sitting there in chairs with the kerosene lamps, and bats would come in through the door or the window and fly around above our heads, and then eventually find their way out and go out. So this one Dharma talk Isan gave, I found very depressing. So I raised my hand in the question and answer in the dining room, and I said, if things are so bad, why don't we just kill ourselves? Because, you know, I've been contemplating that for, you know, at least a year. Yeah.
That's great.
And he said, because it wouldn't help.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
You know,
I agree with that.
That's always, you know, stayed with me.
I think of suicide as getting rid of the solution more than the problem. But that's hard to prove.
Right. There's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause.
Hey, well done.
Yeah, there's the rub.
Yeah. Well, you remember anything else? Wait a minute. What was so depressing about Isan's talk?
It's funny. I don't remember the talk so much. Like all those talks. They went on for, I don't know. I guess they were pretty long talks, at least 45 minutes to an hour. And it was it kind of shocked me that the Zen teachers, upper level teacher would come and give a talk that was like, I wish I could come up with it, but it was kind of like, things are pretty bad and people are pretty awful and the world's going to hell and, keep sitting. And I'm like, well, that's not very encouraging.
Wow. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah. And, it was just, most of the talks that I, heard that summer were, uplifting and sort of optimistic and, kind of like motivations to practice and that kind of thing. Yeah, it was a surprising talk. But I also remember, I remember Reb coming and talking, and I had another one of those kind of extrasensory kind of experiences where I was looking at him while he was talking. I was kind of looking up. I sort of knew that I was supposed to be looking down, but I looked up at Reb, and there was like this white light all around him.
Hey,
kind of like a inch and a half of white light surrounding his body, and I went, "Oh, that's pretty cool." That's pretty great. I like that.
Well, that's very interesting. You were looking at his aura.
Yeah.
A psychic, a very powerful psychic. I brought to Green Gulch, heard Reb speak, and he said Reb had a 9-foot aura that was as big as anything he'd seen in Egypt or India.
Interesting.
He said, but he's young, and he's got problems with his ears. He said he's got to mature. He's got to get older, and he has.
And he has.
Yeah.
The word I was looking for earlier was extrasensory, like an extrasensory experience.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the one I had when I was talking to Steve Allen, or when Steve Allen was doing the talk at the City Center.
Yeah.
Instructions. The other thing I remember, a couple of things. Baker Roshi would come, and I was just totally in awe of him. He was, tooling around in this BMW that he owned, and
that Zen Center owned.
Yeah, I guess it's Zen. That's right, Zen Center owned, and I was a kid from Detroit. I'd never seen anybody driving around in a BMW before, and I thought that was really cool. And he was, sort of this luminary who, I heard that he, hung out with Jerry Brown and Paul Hawken, of course, which, turned out to be not so good news later.
Well,
but
it was just part of how things evolved.
He was a rock star.
Yeah.
To me, he was like a rock star.
Did you have any exchange with him or anything?
Yeah, I had. Did we call it Dokusan?
Yes.
I had that with him once, and I also had a impromptu lesson in the dish shack with him when I was washing dishes.
Yeah.
And I was washing dishes, and we had one of those fly strips hanging from the ceiling. You know what I'm talking about? Those sticky things?
Yes.
That flies would stick to?
Yes.
And because in the dish shack there were flies, and they would crawl all over your face, and you'd be trying to wash dishes. I didn't stay in the dish shack very long, but I happened to be there washing dishes at some early on, and we had this fly strip, and Baker Roshi walked in, and he said, "Oh, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's to catch the flies. You know, they just crawl all over your face, you know, while you're trying to work." And I didn't think anything of it. And he said, "Poor babies." And I just went, "Oh." It just never occurred to me to have compassion for a fly before. But what I was going to mention earlier,
what happened in?
Go ahead.
I was going to just I was going to ask you what happened in the Doksan.
Oh, all I remember was he said to me, I was a young guy and probably thought of myself as being tough. And he said to me, I don't remember much of it, but he said to me, the mighty oak tree doesn't care where it gets its water. Let us help you. And that was pretty good. That got through. That message got through.
Yeah. And you were going to say something else when I interrupted that.
Well, the thing that was very striking to me was, especially with Baker Roshi, whenever he gave a talk, I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. I had no idea. But yet, I would leave the Zendo just stunned. I would literally leave the Zendo after, this was in the evening. He would talk in the evening, as I remember it. And I would leave the Zendo just completely stunned. Like in the cartoons when somebody hits somebody else over the head with a frying pan and it goes
all right.
Every one of his talks were like that. And yet 5 minutes later, if you asked me what he said, I would have said, I have no idea what he said. I don't know what he said. I didn't understand any of it. But it stunned the hell out of me. So that was quite striking.
Yeah.
So I loved Philip Whalen. I knew who Philip was from my readings of Jack Kerouac and some familiarity with the Beat Poets, and that was it was very I was very impressed with the fact that Phil Whalen was there at Tatara and I could talk to him and I had conversations with him over dinner or whatever, and it's like, this is Phil Whalen, oh my God.
Yeah, he was very friendly, very personable.
Yeah. And I was trying to write. I had been writing a bit and trying to write, and I gave him a sample of my writing, and he wrote me a very kind note back that I still have. A note from Phil Whalen about basically, you're a confused young guy, keep sitting, that's basically what he said to me. I was like, okay, all right. I didn't know I was confused. I thought I was pretty sharp.
That's good.
And Norman also, I think I gave Norman some samples of my writing, and he said, keep writing, just keep writing, So you want to hear? I'm just trying to think of things from that summer. I was there. I stayed. I remember they kind of asked me if I wanted to stay and do the practice period, and I'm like, no way, let me out of here. I'll make it till the end of the summer. If I can make it to the end of the summer, then this practice stuff will probably stay with me. If I can just make it, till practice period begins. I think there was, an end of the guest season, clean up or something after all the guests.
Yeah, the
left.
interim.
It was a few days.
The interim.
Yeah, and so
no, it's longer
that.
than a few days. It's like 10 days or something,
Okay. I'm pretty sure I stayed through that, but there was no way. I was just. I mean, sitting was agony. It was really agony. I mean, the idea of and also the idea of having to sit 5 days of Tangario.
Well, you'd already sat one. They wanted you to sit 5 then?
As I remember it, I was, to stay for the practice period, you had to do a 5-day Tangario. That's as I remember it.
I never had to. I never had to because the first Tangario, Suzuki wanted 5 days for it.
Yeah.
But Dick was worried people couldn't do it. There were too many new people. There were people there like you who'd really had very little experience or almost maybe none. And, he just thought that was too much. And so we had a 3-day Tangario and they ended it in the afternoon of the 3rd day. So,
right.
And then we never had to, we never had to do a 5-day then after that. But the whole idea, but when the practice period would start after that, they'd start having you'd had to do 1 day for it, or when you came back, do 1 day. And that's not traditional. In Japan, you do it once in your life. That's it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, now that you mention it, I remember what they said was that it could be 5 days, and they would tell you when to stop.
Oh, goodness!
But it could be as long as 5 days. And I remember somebody saying it depends on how well you sit.
Oh, that's cruel. That's terrible. That's not the right attitude. They shouldn't have done that. Dick wouldn't have. I don't think Dick would have approved of that.
Well, it wasn't. I know it wasn't Blanche. I don't know who told me that, but it wasn't Blanche. And I thought, I was already in agony for the 4 or 5. I think it was 5 periods a day that we were sitting. I was already in agony. So I thought, if I can just make it through to the end. I really had a conscious feeling like, okay, this practice stuff, it will get in me so deeply that I won't be able to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. You say 5 periods in the summer during the guest season. What I remember is 2 periods. One. But see, I wasn't there in 1980. 1 in the morning. No, maybe there were 2 in the morning. I guess you're right. 2 in the morning, and it was the interim where there'd be 1. 2 in the morning and 2 at night. If they were doing a 5th, I don't think so. I think it was 4 periods.
Okay, yeah, it probably was. What I'm remembering is that there was a noon service.
Yeah, that's right. And there's an evening service.
Yeah, but what I was thinking was that there was a period after noon service, but maybe I think you're right. There was only 4.
Well, during the, we might have early on we did have a period before noon service. In fact, that's practice period. I think we might have kept that up during the practice periods. Yeah. But anyway, you were just saying how you felt about what you gotten out of it.
Yeah, I felt like this will improve my life. This is going to help me deal with my life. This is going to help me suffer less, and I got enough of it that that's gonna stick,
Mm-hmm.
and and then there was the period. Do you want to hear about how
Yes.
how I returned a couple years later? I returned in '83.
Yeah, but first, tell me what tell me about leaving and what happened until '83.
Oh, okay. Well, I found my people. I found the people I loved, and so I got a ride into the city, and I went to the city center, and I thought, well, I want to live near city center, and I went into the hallway there at the city center, and I looked at the bulletin board, and somebody needed a roommate, and I moved in with a bunch of Zen students at the corner of Haight and Octavia.
Oh yeah.
And the long-term guy there was George Chacos.
Oh yeah.
And I saw you. I remember you from that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever spoke, but I saw you around, and for some reason I knew your name was David Chadwick, and I remember hearing about Peter Coyote, and it was like, that name stuck in my head. There's a guy named Peter Coyote, I don't think I ever met him, but that name stuck in my head. I mean, George Chacos knew everybody. He'd been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So I moved in with George Chacos and I think 4 other Zen students. We had a huge flat.
Oh
at
yeah.
the corner of Haight and Octavia.
181, huh?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think so. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And George Chacos gave me a job also. So I got a job and a place to live all at once.
Did George paint?
Yeah. I already had a lot of experience painting, house painting. And so he hired me, and I moved in with him like all at once. It was like, oh, well, this is everything I need. I need a job and I need a place to live, and I got them both from George.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I stopped sitting. I just thought, I can't, I need a break from this. I just completely stopped sitting, but I would go to talks at the Zen Center,
Mm-hmm.
Go over there for lunch, and I would go to Green Gulch and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
and several of my roommates worked at Green's. Maybe they were working with you.
Well, I worked at Green 79 spring until 79 spring until 80. I was there 2 years.
Okay.
Maybe I was there till the spring of 82. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm remembering. My female roommate worked at Green's, and 1 or 2 of my male roommates worked at the bakery at the Sahara, at the bread bakery.
Yeah.
And they were serious students. One was a wonderful guy from South Africa named Chris Kuhn, and he worked at the bakery. And here's an interesting story. We had a party. We had a wonderful raging party there at the apartment, and everybody was dancing and having a good time. I guess we were drinking beer, and my roommate Chris, there must have been about 20 people dancing in the living room area.
Chris who?
His last name was Kuhn.
All right. You've already said that, right? Go on.
Koen was his name. He was from South Africa, and he was an astrophysicist.
Oh.
And his English was his second language, but his vocabulary was bigger than mine as a native English speaker.
Well, they speak English in South Africa.
I think, I'm unsure, but I think his first language was Afrikaans.
Oh, he was Dutch. He was Dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think yeah, his first language was Afrikaans and English was his second language, but he was an astrophysicist. Anyway, we're at this party, and we're having this party, and everybody's having a great time, and there's like 20 people dancing in the living room, and Chris disappears for a while, and then I look, and he comes out of his bedroom stark naked and rejoins the party and just starts dancing as if everything's completely normal. And he spends the rest of the party stark naked.
I wonder if he was high.
Possibly. But we all just kind of, accepted the fact that he was stark naked and he was dancing just as he had before, except he didn't have any clothes on.
That's funny.
And the party just kind of went on, and he just mingled and drank and, participated in the party just as if nothing had changed.
It
was
funny.
great.
That's funny.
It was great.
I want to make a comment. I wanted to make it earlier when you were telling about Reb's talk, but I forgot about it because of your describing seeing the white light around it. Was very impressive. Yeah, you're obviously sensitive, which, that's impressive. Anyway, you said you looked at him. You said, you're supposed to look down. I do not agree with that. You can look right at the speaker.
Well, somehow I had the impression that I was supposed to, keep my eyes down during the talk.
Well, maybe some people think that. And I would tend to do that a lot, but I don't, I never felt like I had to. And some people, I'm like Suzuki Roshi, I'd always look right at him when he was speaking.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of wrong ideas about, what practice was. I probably still do.
Oh, yeah, me too. That's normal. That's part of practice. That's what practice is. Practice is having the wrong ideas about practice.
Yeah. Forever. Forever. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Do you remember when you were painting? Let's see, who else painted? Blaze Smith was painting some there. That's how I met him. Terry Gregg painted some. Well, he was at Greens then. No, he was at Greens with me.
Well, my roommate on Octavia was one of them was a woman named Sherry, and she was a server at Greens. I guess she worked for you.
I was the maitre d'.
Okay.
So nobody worked for me. Maybe back then, maybe Ed was the head waiter, but I did ask waiters, please set table number 4 for 3 people or something like that. I'd do that. So I worked with people. But yeah, so Sherry, all right.
Yeah. I can't come up with her last name at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, Sherry. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
She was kind of a big gal, dark hair. Brash. Yeah. So and I remember Chris had to be at the bakery at some god awful hour, and I thought, geez, I'm not willing to put myself through that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Being a house painter was easy compared to the long hours and low pay that everybody was getting at the bakery. I think at Greens too.
Oh yeah. It was slave. It was slave labor. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't willing to go there.
Yeah. I was. Oh well. Go on. So Well, all right, keep going.
Well, the next thing that sort of stands out in my Zen career, if you will, is that in '83. Well, after 9 months in San Francisco, I just couldn't stand the city, so I moved back to Portland, Oregon.
Oh.
I needed to get back to the forest. I needed to get back to the forest in Portland. I loved Portland. But in '83, I decided to move to Tassajara.
Oh.
Or I thought I decided to return to Tassajara. And I had a little crappy car, but I loaded all my possessions in the car, and I thought, I'm going to Tassajara, and maybe I'll stay there the rest of my life and become a monk. And I was just kind of going without knowing what would happen, but I brought everything I owned, packed it all in the car, and I just thought, I'm going to go to Tassajara and maybe I'll just stay there forever. But when I got there, this was probably May or June of '83, or maybe July of '83. The fall of Baker Roshi had happened.
Yeah.
And
that's when it happened.
Yeah, and I felt like the energy was just not there.
Yeah.
It just was like, it just wasn't the same place. There was just, I'm not sure exactly how to say it other than there was this intense practice energy and inspiration when I was there the first time. And after, events had come about with Baker Roshi and he'd basically been, fired, there was like all the energy at Tassajara was gone.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't there. And I just felt like, it's like the body didn't have a head.
Yeah, he wasn't fired, incidentally. There was just an impasse between him and the board. And
did he quit?
Yeah, he found it wasn't going to work.
I just think of it as the fall of Baker Roshi.
That's right.
So I didn't want to stay. And I stayed a month. I did stay a month. Mm-hmm. I remember Catherine Tanis was doing yoga. I don't remember a lot from that month. But I thought, well, this isn't it. This isn't what I'm looking for. It's just the energy is gone. So I decided to go to ZCLA.
Oh, yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah.
I had my car. I had everything I owned. And I thought, well, I'll go to ZCLA and see how that is. And I had met Joko Beck at a 3-day sesshin in who she came up to Portland to do a 3-day sesshin. So I had sat with Joko, and I was pretty, I liked her, but I wasn't, bonded with her after just a 3-day session. But when I went to ZCLA, they assigned me to work with Joko.
Oh.
And that's when I found my teacher. That's when I found my real teacher. Because she was a monk at ZCLA still then, and I began working closely with her, and then I studied with her until she died in when she died, 2011 or something.
Yeah.
So she became my teacher as a direct result of the fall of Baker Roshi.
I've never heard anything but good things about her.
She was an amazing person. She just shook me to my core every time I Every time I talked to her, she used the word, she called it Dyson. Every Dyson would just pull the rug out from under me completely.
She called
and
it
lead me to
Dyson. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, she called it Dyson. I'm not sure why she changed the word. Or maybe I don't remember if that's what they called it at ZCLA, but after she left ZCLA, that's what she called it.
And she went to San Diego or something?
Yeah, there was a lot of misbehavior at ZCLA, crazy drunk. Maizumi Roshi, as far as I have heard, he was an alcoholic, and there was a lot of really, awful behavior there. And finally, she just said, forget it, I'm leaving. And she started her own center. And I think they called her a Dharma holder when I was there. Mm-hmm. And she was teaching. And then I'm not sure exactly I'm not sure if she became a Dharma heir exactly of Maizumi Roshi, but she was I guess she was a Dharma heir of Maizumi Roshi, and then she left, and she just started her own center and stopped wearing robes, and she tried to take the Japanese culture. I mean, my impression was she, kind of tried to eliminate the specialness from Zen, because there was a lot of specialness around the robes and the shaved heads and the Japanese words.
Right.
And,
right.
Her book was called Nothing Special.
Yeah. Yeah.
So her center in San Diego is very different. Zen Center of San Diego. And I just loved her. I mean, I just loved her completely, and it was just such a feeling of intimacy whenever I was with her.
Oh, that's great.
And I learned so much. I mean, I learned how to, manage my life, which was, had involved a lot of suffering. And I mean, she was just the ideal teacher for me.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I wish she was still around. But I find it interesting because if Baker Roshi hadn't had his fall, I don't think I would have ever, encountered Joko. I had encountered her, but I don't think I would have become her student. Yeah. So it was very, very much a direct result of that crisis at the San Francisco Zen Center.
Yeah.
I ended up there.
That's really interesting. Now, the reason we've been in contact recently is because you sent me a message on Facebook. We were Facebook friends with a photo of a couple of the brochures that we had put out when we were raising money for Tassajara to buy it.
That's right.
And one of them I recognized as the one I didn't have.
Right.
The only, the only one from that early time that I didn't have. It was actually not a brochure to raise money for Tassajara. It was the very first brochure that went out. It was to raise money to buy a piece of land near Tassajara called the Horse Pasture, 160 acres, where we planned to build a monastery. And, Suzuki and Baker had Tassajara in mind, but Beck wasn't willing to sell it yet. And then finally, his wife was pregnant, and, they'd been running it since 1960, and it was in December 66, they agreed to sell Tal Sahara. But so that money went toward Tal Sahara. Anyway, now you found that, and you tell me how you got hold of that.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was after I went to Tal Sahara or before. I was staying. I want to say it was before I went to Tal Sahara.
So it was 1980. It was 1980.
Yeah, it was 1980, and I believe I was assigned to clean the bathroom there and the hallway, kind of behind the office.
Yeah.
And there were these boxes of brochures. There were hundreds of brochures in these boxes, just kind of stacked up, sitting there. And I pulled one out and looked at it, and I wasn't keeping the precepts at that time. I hadn't taken the precepts. I didn't even know what the precepts were. So I thought, well, these are cool, and they're just sitting here, so I'll take a couple. And, 43 years later, I still have them. I just thought they were, amazing, interesting artifacts from, the beginning of Tal Sahara, and showed, some of the process of how it started. And I just thought they were wonderful and interesting. And so I just took a couple them with me. And I've had them all this time. And I don't know, it was probably 10 or 15 years ago, I wrote to, I think, David Zimmerman at the City Center, and I thought, well, maybe somebody wants these, somebody, maybe somebody would find these valuable, and maybe Zen Center would like these, and they didn't seem very interested, and I thought, well, okay, I guess I'll just keep them for my own pleasure and my own history. It was a little bit of my history too.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, at some point in time, I thought, well, maybe David Chadwick would like to know about these. And bingo, it was great, to find that somebody was really interested in these things, because I'd always found them very interesting.
Yeah.
Seemed like I was kind of the only one who found them interesting.
Yeah. Well, I knew we were missing one. And, I went through, but see, I was doing it I was looking for stuff in, say, the 1990s. I was working on Crooked Cucumber then, but no, I think it was later. I went through a lot of stuff there in the second half of the 1990s, working on Crooked Cucumber.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I think, no, pardon me, I'm just reviewing. Actually, I would look through and find things after Crooked Cucumber came out, because, Cuke.com got going, and I kept adding to the archive. But that is one item I never came across. Maybe it was in the library storage room. I thought I'd gone through everything there, but I missed things. And so when I got that from you, I went, wow, that is so great.
Yeah.
And, it's now on a page on Cuke.com for brochures and posters for raising money for Tal Sahara in 1966-67. And then, recently, I don't know, a month ago, I realized, this isn't all here. It's one, you sent me a pretty good photo of the whole front side. And I had thought, and it's a big piece of paper that's like maybe a foot by or a foot even bigger
I
say,
think so.
a foot and a half by a foot and a half or something. That, it was folded to be a mailer, so it didn't even need an envelope.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right, David.
And then it opened up into this big thing, So I realized what made me realize it. I thought, because I spent a lot of time looking at just the details and the facts of that time, so I was looking at everything and I was reading that, and I realized there's no pitch for money. There's no address. There's no. I was thinking the address and all that was the only thing missing. I realized, there's another side. And then I got hold of you, and you when you get back to Portland, I will be eager. What I'd like you to do is to take it to Kinko's or whatever, to FedEx Kinko's, and have it like scanned both sides, really
scanned
professionally, right? I'd be happy to pay for it.
Sure, no problem.
But
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, and then just keep it.
Yeah. Okay.
The
ironic thing is that I don't have access to it because I rented out. I stuffed all my stuff, everything, deep into the attic at my house, and I rented it to a family. So, unfortunately, timing is a bit off.
Yeah. Well, when do you think you might be back
there? But
I
know I have it.
Yeah. When do you think you might be back there again?
I will be back there in about 3 weeks.
No kidding.
I'm going for 8 months, but I will be back there, and you'll have to nudge me because there's going to be a lot going on when I get back there. I've been away for 8 months.
Yeah. Well,
I've got a new and so I need to find it, because I'll have to ask my technician to go into my storage area.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. So that I love hearing about your Zen path there. That's really interesting. But let me ask you, what have you done for a living?
Oh, well, lots of stuff. I've been a truck driver. After I became a house painter. I moved back to Portland. I became a maintenance man at the Portland Art Museum. I became a hotel doorman at the most expensive hotel in Portland. Became a massage therapist.
Oh, goodness.
And I was pretty well known in Portland. I was known as Portland's masseur to the stars, and I worked on a bunch of famous people who stayed in the exclusive hotels in Portland. And I was well known in Portland as a highly regarded massage therapist. I was on TV and stuff, but I never could make a living. And then slowly over time, I became a landlord.
You couldn't make a living being a high-end massage therapist? Huh.
No, it just never completely took off, and I just could never. And I got married, and Joko married my ex-wife and I. We had a wonderful, amazing wedding with Joko officiating, and then we had kids, and I needed to make money, and I just couldn't do it as a massage therapist. It just never. I gave it 14 years of my life. I was a massage therapist for 14 years and just never could make a living at it. And slowly over time, I started remodeling houses. I bought a couple houses cheap and remodeled them and made them into rentals. And so I've been a landlord for over 35 years. I even had a blog for a while. I called it Landlord Zen, Property Management for the Sake of All Beings. And I was trying to be a blogger, but nobody ever read my blog, so I gave up. Nobody ever cared to read it. So now I'm 68 and, I make my living as a landlord in Portland. My rentals are in Portland.
Well, why are you traveling around?
Yeah. Well, I've made a living as a landlord for the last 20 years or more. That's been my primary. Ever since I stopped doing massage, my income has come from my rentals.
Why are you living in Corpus Christi?
Well, in 2016, my wife of 32 years, I think she went kind of crazy and she just decided she didn't want to be married to me anymore, which was a big shock. So, I'm trying to decide how much detail you want. So 2016, my marriage ended. 2018, I ended up in Israel as a tourist, met an Israeli woman, and now I'm married to an Israeli woman, a wonderful Israeli woman. And for the last 15 months, we've been waiting for a green card. So we've been traveling around the U.S. while we waited for a green card. She hadn't seen very much of the U.S.
Oh.
And so we decided to rent out my home in Portland and, take that money and travel. And so we left Portland 8 months ago, and we were in California for a couple months, and we were in Tucson for 5 months, and now we're in Corpus Christi. And the green card interview is happening on June 13th. So that's a wonderful thing. We've literally been waiting and waiting and waiting for 15 months without knowing, when this wait would end. So we just rented a place in Corpus Christi for a month because we wanted someplace where we could go swimming in salt water.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
so great. We're just in an Airbnb here.
Well, it's nice. That's good. Well, you've had an interesting trajectory in your life. I'm glad you didn't kill yourself.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And now you asked, I remember when I said, hey, why don't you be a guest for a podcast? Well, I wouldn't have much to say, and I don't know why you want me. But this has been great. It's been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And
thank you, David.
Yeah. Well, let's stay in touch.
Please do.
And I'll be eager to encourage you when you're in Portland to get that done. So far, I have not found another one of them. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't. You're the only one that I know who has got one that we could, have the whole thing on Cuke.com for.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to contribute a bit to your history of Zen Center and Suzuki Roshi.
Yeah,
I'm very pleased that I can add something to that.
Well, yeah, you've added half of that. And this podcast, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, you gave a nice picture of being at Zen Center, and I think it's neat to show how you know, how somebody's experience of going through Zen Center, and it, you know, a brief experience there, you know, of some months, how important it was, and your details were great.
Oh, thank you.
That's, you know, I sort of feel like it's I have a sort of sociological way of looking at it sometimes, that I don't want a sampling of just the high mucky mucks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that gives a good picture. And
well, there were a lot of students that went through there that didn't become mucky mucks.
That's right. That's right. Although I like the mucky mucks, and I admire them for, you know, sticking with it and all that. So I like everybody at every level.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm honored to be invited.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. It's been good talking with you. So let's stay in touch. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Feel free to prod me. Feel free to prod me about the middle of June.
Okay.
Regarding those brochures.
I will do that. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Yeah. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. So thank you very much, Mike Pappas. Incidentally, this is before he was back in Portland and did send those excellent photographs that you can see on that page. Look, the way to find things on cuke.com, cuke.com, is just to write keywords in the site search box. That's what I do. When I want to look, I don't go in my computer and figure out where it is unless I'm going to work on it. I go online and I just write the word. This one I have to write posters or brochures or something. It'll come up, page will come up. And it's pretty neat. You can download them too. Anyway, there's I think the most popular one would be the Zenefit one. That's a neat poster, colorful. You can also get it by going to the publications drop-down menu. It's the very bottom one. Posters and brochures for early Zen Mountain Center fundraising. I say Zen Mountain Center because the first ones weren't for Tassajara. They were for land. Okay. So anyway, thanks, Mike. A really good Waisigi Mind story. And I appreciate it. And until we meet again, this has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sonora with Doghead Pandita, feline, oh no, that slips out, feline cuchitas in the garden, fertilizing the plants. So, Doghead Pandita, guest Doghead Boombita Boombu, which means spice in Indonesian. And that's not her real name. Her real name is Bumble, but it's too hard for Indonesians to say. So we say Boombu, or Boombita. Anyway, so with Doghead Bandita, guest Doghead Boombita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.